to Ecoholics. In the previous video, we have learnt about the foundation of the logical reasoning part of syllogism, and now we are going to understand the square of opposition. The classical square of opposition within the syllogism part is like a chart which has maintained its very important logic between the four types of sentences: A type, O type, E type and I type of sentences. So today we are going to understand the logic, the interlinking, the classical square of opposition, the terminologies, and also we are going to do a question that was recently asked in the 2021 UGC NET Paper 1 examination. So let's begin. When we talk from the point of view of the classical square of opposition, we are going to identify four very important rules that are very important to remember, firstly, because many a times we get confused between them, and secondly, there's also certain logics that we have to draw from here and there from our own understanding. So let's begin with the very first one, which is contradictory sentences. Okay. Now, contradiction, usually when we talk from the point of view of just a English grammatical statement, we usually use contradiction, that something which has been mentioned, and if another thing is totally opposite, or in a certain condition, a statement is totally behaving in the opposite manner from which it was behaving earlier, then that becomes a contradiction, right? And usually when we talk from a certain point of view, also we talk from that angle. However, when we talk from the point of view of syllogism, logical reasoning, that time we must understand that there are certain basic rules to identify the contradiction. Okay, so what are the contradictory statements? Contradictory statements will be the one. Now, these are three rules that we have. The very first one is, if one is true, then the other will be definitely false. If one is true, then the other is going to be definitely false. Second, if one is false, then the other will be definitely true. That's what the contradiction is all about. Both cannot be true or false at the same time. At the same time, you cannot expect that two opposites can be true or false together. That's like a common logic. Now, to understand this more carefully, let's talk from the perspective of example. So here, when we talk from the types of four sentences that we did in the previous lecture, so we have A and O type of sentences and E and I type of sentences, which are known as contradictory sentences. Now, this is very, very important. The A and the O type of sentences, the A type of sentence is the universally affirmative sentence. O type of sentence is not universally negative. It is partially exclusive. Partially exclusive and universally affirmative. These are the two statements which are contradictory to each other. Let's understand. We are understanding A and O type of sentences, and from that point of view, how can we look at this particular question? Let's say A type of sentence would be all girls are tall. All girls are tall. Tall is a predicate, are is a copula, girls is subject, all is quantifier. So this is like a type of sentence, universally positive. All girls are tall. O type of sentence. Some girls are not tall. Okay. At one point you're saying all girls are tall. Second point you're saying, but some girls are not tall. This can't be true at the same time. or this can't be false at the same time. So contradictory statements are going to be identified when either A is correct or O type of statement is correct, or either A type of statement is false or O type of statement is false, right? So this has to be clearly be identified. What is the contradiction? If A is true, then O will definitely be false. If O is true, then A will be definitely false. So both cannot be true and false at the same time. Let's try from the second important rule that we have. Okay. This was from the point of view of A and O. Now we are going to identify from the point of view of E and I. Okay. So we have E and I type of statements. E type of statement is universally negative statement, right? And I type of statement is partially inclusive statement, matlab partially affirmative statements, right? Now, if we talk from the point of view of E type, now E type will be no dog is cat. No dog is cat. Okay. Now this is a statement which is universally negative. No dog is cat. Okay. And if I talk up from the perspective of I type of statements, some dog, I'll keep this dogs so that grammatically it's not incorrect. Some dogs, and then I have to change the, just a second, I'll put R over here. So no dogs are cat, some dogs are cat. Okay. Now here copula is same. Copula, no dog are cat, some dogs are cat. Copula same. However, quantifier is different. And if just put it logically, no dog is cat, no window is table. If that is true, then how can some dogs are cat be true? So if E type of statements are true, if this is true, then this definitely has to be false. And if this is true, then this definitely has to be false. Okay. So identification of contradictory statements will be what? From A, O type of sentences and E and I type of sentences. And do remember the 3 golden rules of contradictory sentences. So that is the first first type from the classical square of oppositions, contradictory. Okay. Now, the next is contrary. Okay. Now, contrary is another terminology that most of the students confuse with the contradictory statements. Okay. So first, let's understand what is contrary. It's always between universal. It's always between universal means we are going to always talk about the universally positive and universally negative sentences. The quality that we are talking about is universal. Okay. Or quantity that we are talking about actually is universal. So both statements cannot be true at the same time. We are talking from the point of view of A type and E type of sentences. A type and E type of sentences. Okay. All girls are tall. Okay. And E type of sentence will be no girl is tall. Cannot be true at the same time. Cannot be true at the same time. All girls are tall, no girl is tall. There's no either or. You can either have all girls are tall or you can have no girl is tall. Okay. So when the time of truth arrives, either this will happen or this will happen. Both cannot be true at the same time. Both cannot be true at the same time. But both can be false at the same time. Logically, do not understand, logical reasoning part should not be understood from your logics, okay? They have to be understood from the logics which are given by rules, okay? And so rules say that both cannot be true at the same time, but both can be false. This statement can also be false. At the same time, this statement can also be false. Matlab, both of the statements can be false, can be wrong at the same time, right? So this is one very, very, very important foundational rule for the contrary type of sentences. Now, if one is true, the other will be definitely false, and if one is false, then the other will be doubtful. Now this is something which we must understand. So here there are a couple of examples. Let us look at the examples and let's understand from those examples. Alright. So contrary opposition exists between two propositions when both have universal quantity, but one affirms and the other denies its predicate. Affirms and denies its predicate. What is it? Copula. So the role of copula over here is very, very important. Is not, are not. This is like the copula concept. Okay. Then the relationship between E and A is going to be considered as contrary. So if you have to look at it from the example point of view, A type of sentence, all men are honest. All men are honest. E type of sentence, no men are honest. Okay. Now A type and E type. Look at the C and D rule. If one is true, then the other will be definitely false. If A is true, all men are honest, then no men are honest is false statement. However, if one is false, means if this statement is false, if all men are honest is a false statement, then the other will be doubtful. Why it will be doubtful? Because we do not have further information to truthfully say or validly say that no men are honest is true statement. Okay, so again these two rules also make a very important foundation of identifying, especially while doing the questions of syllogism, whether you have to select a sentence or you do not have to select a sentence will depend upon these three rules. And of course, to remember the contraries is this one, where you have to only deal with the universal statements, no partially exclusive or inclusive statements, right? So this becomes your contrary statements. The next one is subcontrary. Okay. Now subcontrary is, it's always between particular. So contrary was always between universal, A type and E type of statements. Subcontrary is always between particular, between specific, which means I type and O type of sentences. So we are going to compare always I and O type of sentences to identify the subcontrary statements. This is opposite to contrary. Both statements cannot be false at the same time, but both can be true at the same time. Both statements cannot be false but can be true at the same time. Okay, so the rules will be totally opposite from what we learned in the contrary. If one is false, then the other will be definitely true, but if one is true, then the other will be doubtful. Okay, again, looking at the examples of these statements, we have to look from the I and O perspectives. Let's say over here we have the example, some judges are lawyers. Some judges are lawyers. That's like a partially inclusive statement, I type of statement. Some judges are lawyers. Now O type of statement is what? Some judges are not lawyers. Okay, some judges are lawyers, some judges are not lawyers. Okay, now if we check these rules over here, some judges are lawyers and some judges are not lawyers. Okay, so checking with the rules, if one is false, if let's say this one is false, okay, which one is false? If I type of statement is false, then O type of statement will definitely be true. But if I type of statement is true, then you can't talk about the O type of statement. O type of statement will be doubtful. Okay, now of course it's very hard to take all of it in, but because there are rules to syllogism, you can't just learn logical reasoning just by reading or flipping the pages of a book, because there's a lot of interlinking that has to be done, and which is why you must always understand that from the perspective of UGC NET examination paper 1, it's a game changer. If you only align your concepts by interlinking the various topics that you learn, you will definitely score between you will definitely be including your 45 to 50 question framework. You will be maintaining that, and you will definitely be scoring correctly these type of questions, these number of questions. So this is very, very important. Okay, now finally, after the subcontrary, we have subalternation. Okay, so subalternation is between universal and particular. Subalternation is between universal and particular. Okay, so we have A and I, universally affirmative, partially affirmative, and universally negative and partially negative. Okay, so the concept subalternation is between these two types of pairs of statements or sentences or propositions. If universal is true, let's say if universally affirmative is true, then particular will be true also. We had done this in the previous lecture also, that if let's say if I say all dogs are cute, all dogs are cute is a universally positive statement. So a partially inclusive statement of the same one, some dogs are cute, also will be true. Right? Similarly, for the universally negative one, no dog is tall. Okay, if that is universally negative, okay, then partially negative or partially exclusive, some dogs are not tall, also is going to be true. Okay, so it works for both of the universal statements, universally positive also and universally negative also. Then if universal is false, particular will be doubtful. So if this is false, then this is going to be doubtful. If this is false, then this is going to be doubtful. If particular is true, then universal will also be doubtful. Okay? If particular is true, then universal will be doubtful. So you have two types of doubtful statements over here. Okay? If the universal, I'll write it here so that it's a little bit visible. Okay, A and E type of statements are universally positive and negative statements, universal statements. Okay, so if universal is false, then what will happen? If universal is false, then your your I and O type of sentences, then particular will be doubtful. Okay, and if particular is true, then universal will be doubtful. So this type of correlation definitely has to be understood. Okay, then we also have if particular is false, then universal also will be definitely false. If particular is false, then universal definitely is false. That's like a given statement. Okay, so this and point C and E should be learnt correlatively. Okay, so let's take the example over here. All Indians are spiritual. This is a type of sentence. All Indians are spiritual, and then some Indians are spiritual. Okay, so if we check from the point of view of subalternation, all Indians are spiritual. If all Indians are spiritual is true, okay, then particular will also be true. All Indians are spiritual, some Indians are spiritual, true, both the sentences. If universal is false, all Indians are spiritual is a false statement, then some Indians are spiritual is going to be doubtful, because you do not know where this information is coming from, right? Then if particular is false, some Indians are spiritual is a false statement. Some Indians are spiritual is a false statement. Then universal also is supposed to be a false statement, because again you have direct information that if particular, a specific portion is false, then definitely the whole portion also is false. And finally, if some Indians are spiritual is a true statement, some Indians are spiritual is a true statement, then universal is doubtful. Why universal is doubtful? Because we have seen that for both partially inclusive and partially exclusive Venn diagrams, we have the same type of structure, and which is why we do not have enough information to prove the truthfulness or the falsehood of that statement. Okay, so which is why this is the kind of rule, right? So these are the 4 very important types of classical square of oppositions. To understand the classical square of oppositions, you must start doing the questions, start making the Venn diagrams. Okay, classical square of oppositions will not just be giving you rules through which you are going to efficiently work out your Venn diagrams, but also they are going to be very, very helpful to score good marks, especially in the logical reasoning part. It will very nicely clear all your concepts regarding various terms and various sentences and how they are correlated with each other. Okay, so with these rules, definitely the 4 types of classical square of opposition will be well understood. We'll be coming with a very important question that was asked from the point of view of classical square of oppositions very soon. So stay tuned to our channel Ecoholics and like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.